Part 2 of our Joker build. This time we are working on the paints. And first thing we have to do is mask off the pants, and that's after the pants have been painted black. As in the previous part, I mentioned that I'm using Tamiya tape for that, and just cutting very, very thin stripes with a ruler and knife. And you can buy 1mm tape, and perhaps even smaller. I can't remember if I found it smaller. However, they tend to be made out of vinyl, and they just don't have the stick quality that masking tape does, and especially when you're using them very, very thin like I'm doing here. I actually did buy some, tried it, and it just wouldn't stick. So ended up using this method instead. My first attempt came out pretty good, however, I quickly realized I was adding way too many stripes. If we went ahead with this method, there'd be just as much black on the pants as purple. For my second attempt, I kept the stripes much further apart, and that's going to allow more of the purple to show through in the end. And it's not going to be 100% screen accurate, but unfortunately, I don't think there's a real way to do that on this kit unless, which is something I thought about at the end of the build and something I didn't consider, you can actually carve in stripes. It's not something I've really done before, but scribing in panel lines works on vehicle kits all the time, and there's really no reason you couldn't theoretically do it on the pants as well. For the paint, I am using Vallejo Game Color Warlord Purple for the purple, and before laying that down, I put down a coat of white primer. That's because the purple is a little thin and we're airbrushing it. I didn't want to airbrush it over straight black because I felt that was going to darken the results a bit too much. The problem was, which I didn't realize at the time, because this is not a flat surface, this is basically a 360-degree rounded surface on the legs. As you move around the kit, you can see the white primer showing underneath the purple. So what did I do? Strip the whole thing and start it all over again. More on the pants later, but let's move on to the face. And that is obviously just painted with white. I did put an undercoat of light flesh tone underneath because I thought about letting some of that show through because the makeup on the show wasn't perfect. However, I didn't think that would translate well onto the kit. I wasn't sure if it would look like I screwed up or if the show screwed up, so I decided just to spray it all white. We need to add a little bit of depth to his face, and once again, could have possibly done this with flesh tones. However, again, I didn't think it would translate well onto the kit. So instead, we're just going to go with some cool gray colors and putting these on as basically I'm layering them on as a very thin glaze, kind of going in the recesses as a wash. First starting with some very light glacier blue and then mixing in some light gray to that for the deeper recesses, and not being super careful at this stage because in the end I'm going to go back and clean it up and basically highlight it by using pure white. So it's difficult to get a nice depth on a pure clown white face like this. So it's going to be some subtle transitions of colors, but I think it works in the end. For the eyebrows, I really wish I caught this earlier and I could have fixed it at the time. Cesar Romero's eyebrows were exaggerated in his Joker costume. However, they were still on his eyebrows. On this kit, they are way too high, and they're also kind of thin as well. If I could go back, I would sand these off and put them in with just a little thin bit of putty, and a wax carving tool would make it look a lot more like Cesar Romero. Because the face is clown white, I have to alternate some of the colors I would normally use on, say, the eyes and the teeth. For the eyes, I'm going with something a little bit more yellow than I normally would use. Also, had to blacken them in first with literal black. Normally I'd use a dark brown, but he is wearing very heavy eyeliner around his eye, so even though it looks very weird, it's actually screen accurate. Painting the rest of the eye is fairly simple. Trying a toothpick to dot in the eyes, which is one method you can do. Honestly, I still kind of prefer the brush method, but paint in a black circle to tell us where the pupil is going to go, and we fill that in with color. Now, I used burnt umber, however, Cesar Romero's eyes were actually blue, but every single screenshot that I looked at, it looks almost black or dark brown, and I think that's just the type of film that was used, and because of the white face, it makes his eyes look a little darker. So I actually went with what is visually correct instead of biologically correct for him. We finish up with a drop of white in the corner of each eye for a little bit of glint, and then a drop of black for the pupil. With the teeth, as with the eyes, going with something a bit more yellow than I normally would. However, Cesar Romero's teeth weren't in the best shape, so we're not too far off base here. Just remember, when you're highlighting teeth, you definitely don't want to overdo it. Don't leave a big contrast between each tooth because it looks really, really bad, especially on a kit like this. Basically, you just want a line of off-white and a little bit of highlighting on each tooth, and that's it. Painting in the lips and following a screenshot from the TV show as best as I can here, and might as well mention, since we're working on the lips, yes, his mustache is there. I chose not to highlight it or shade it because I was trying to blend it into the face. I thought adding shade would make it a little bit too obvious. However, once again, not screen accurate. His mustache is too low on his lip. Cesar Romero actually had more of a V shape, and it started right underneath his nose. So once again, a little bit of imperfection on the kit that can be easily remedied with a little bit of filing and some putty. For the hair, you do have some options. I'm not sure if they use different dyes or just looking online for screenshots from the TV show, you can see a lot of variety in the color of green in his hair, everywhere from a very pale, muted green to a green the exact same color as his shirt to a lighter green like I'm doing here. I went with the lighter green, a lighter pale green, because I wanted something a bit more vibrant to offset all the whiteness on the face, and I didn't want to do the same color as we're going to do on the shirt. For the shirt, very simple. We're just using model color deep green. However, once again, we have some issues here. First of all, the shirt is pinstriped. I'm not surprised they didn't bother trying to recreate that with the sculpting or casting here. However, one thing I didn't notice until I started painting it, it has no buttons. This is not a dress shirt he's wearing, it's a pullover shirt, which is definitely incorrect. For the gloves, I painted them first with model color purple, and then I went over it lightly with Warlord purple. They appear to be the same color as the suit, but since it's a different material, I wanted a slightly different shade to it. So this makes it just slightly off color from what the suit is. Now, because of the scale, we don't have to do a whole lot of highlighting or shading on this model. In fact, all I'm going to do is just a little bit of shade in the recesses. For the purple here, just a very thin coat of Warlord purple mixed with a little bit of black in the recesses. And then on the green shirt, we did the exact same thing with green, of course, instead of purple. But that is about it, just painting in some of those seam lines and a few little panel areas that need a little bit of a darker shade, like around the lapel, and that's about it. And there we go, that is the Joker. Went by pretty quick because it's a fairly simple kit to build. It's just mainly the stripes on the pants that took the most time. Other than that, it's all just pretty much one color and a white face. You don't have to worry about trying to do correct flesh tones. There are two major problems I have with this kit. First is the stripes. Now, normally I would prefer to paint something like the stripes, but in this case, to get them most accurate, they really should have been scribed into the kit. Again, I didn't try it myself because I didn't think about it until too late, but actually panel scribing them in probably would work best, especially if you're familiar with that technique already. The other issue I have, and I think the main one, is this is not Cesar Romero. This is the Joker. Looking at this kit when it's all together, I see almost no resemblance to Cesar Romero. The neck is wrong, the eyebrows are wrong, the mustache is wrong. The shape of the face essentially is wrong. The chin should be much weaker to make Cesar Romero, and if you see it, I think you're going to see the 1960s Joker, but you're not seeing Cesar Romero in that. And I'm wondering if this was sculpted as the Joker and not as Cesar Romero, because I see very little Cesar Romero in this kit. I think if you want a model kit of the Joker, this is well worth it. If you're looking for the 1960s TV Joker, there's not a whole lot here that is accurate, but then again, this is part of the big Moebius Batman set, so if you got all the other ones, well, of course, you're going to get this one too. I would really like to see an aftermarket head for this kit that's much more accurate, and I did look online at one point to see if I could find one. Unfortunately, no one's making one yet. There is one to make it look more comic booky, but that's the exact opposite direction that I would like to go with this. So that is about it. I do like the kit. I would just really like to know who it was sculpted after, because I highly doubt it was Cesar Romero. And that is almost just about it for this series. One more model to go till we can finish the entire series off. That would be Batgirl, which probably won't be out, I'm going to guess, till next year with the delay issue happening right now in the world. But we'll see you back then, because it will happen. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Flag on the moon. How did it get there?